Welcome to the Psychology and Physical Training channel, probing the nature and definition of learning. Have you ever pondered what learning truly means? It's a question that may seem simple at first glance, but when you dig deeper, you realize there's so much more to it than meets the eye. Often, we confine the concept of learning to the walls of a classroom, imagining it as the process of studying textbooks or acquiring information. But let's challenge this conventional understanding. Is learning just about memorizing facts and figures, or is there something more profound at play? Imagine learning as a vast ocean, with waves that extend far beyond the shores of formal education. This ocean encompasses a lifelong process of acquiring not just knowledge, but also skills, values, attitudes, and new ways of thinking. It's a process that molds us, shapes our identity, and transforms the way we perceive the world around us. So where does this learning occur? Is it confined to the four walls of a classroom? No, it isn't. Learning is not limited to formal education. It's happening all around us all the time. It takes place within the warmth of our families, where we first learn about love, trust, and relationships. It unfolds in our workplaces, where we navigate complex tasks, grapple with challenges, and learn to work as part of a team. It's present in our social interactions, where we learn to empathize, communicate, and connect with others. Learning, in its essence, is a transformative process. It's about absorbing information, yes, but it's also about using that information to transform ourselves. It's about evolving, growing, and continually adapting to the ever-changing world around us. So, the next time you think about learning, remember, it's not just about memorizing facts from a textbook. It's about experiencing life in all its complexity. It's about making mistakes, asking questions, and finding answers. It's about discovering who you are and who you want to be. So, learning is not just about absorbing information, it's about transforming ourselves and the way we perceive the world, exploring the behaviorist orientation of learning. Now that we've defined learning, how does it occur from a behaviorist perspective? Let's dive into the fascinating world of behaviorism, a psychological orientation that focuses on observable behaviors. According to behaviorists, learning is all about interactions with the environment. It's a process that involves the understanding of how external stimuli can influence our actions and reactions. From this perspective, the learning process is not about inner thoughts or emotions, but about the observable changes in behavior. One of the key concepts in behaviorist learning is conditioning. This is a process where our behaviors become associated with certain stimuli. Think about Pavlov's famous experiment with dogs. The dogs learned to associate the sound of a bell, an initially neutral stimulus, with food, a significant stimulus. This resulted in the dogs salivating at the sound of the bell alone, demonstrating a learned behavior, or what we call a conditioned response. Another important concept in the behaviorist orientation of learning is reinforcement. Reinforcement is the idea that behaviors which are rewarded are more likely to be repeated. For instance, if a student gets praised for answering a question correctly in class, they're more likely to participate in future class discussions. This is positive reinforcement. On the other hand, if a child touches a hot stove and gets burnt, they learn not to touch it again. This is an example of negative reinforcement, where an unpleasant outcome leads to a decrease in a particular behavior. Then, we have punishment, which is the application of an adverse stimulus to reduce or eliminate a certain behavior. For example, if a child is grounded for not doing their homework, they may learn to complete their tasks on time to avoid a similar consequence in the future. Let's look at another example to see how these concepts come together. Imagine a person who is learning to drive. They might initially drive too fast and receive a speeding ticket, which serves as a form of punishment. This negative consequence may lead them to slow down in the future. Then, As they continue to drive at the speed limit, they avoid further tickets, which is a form of negative reinforcement. Over time, their behavior changes and they become a more cautious driver. This is a classic example of how behaviorist learning theories explain our responses to different situations. It's important to note that behaviorist learning theories are not without their critics. Some argue that they oversimplify the complex process of learning by focusing solely on observable behaviors and ignoring the role of mental processes. However, despite these criticisms, the behaviorist orientation has provided valuable insights into how we learn. In essence, the behaviorist perspective sees learning as a result of our interactions with the environment around us. It shows us how our behaviors can be shaped and changed through a process of conditioning, reinforcement, and punishment. This perspective provides a unique lens through which to understand the complex process of learning, unraveling connectionism and cognitive orientation to learning. So we've seen how behaviorists view learning, but what about cognitive psychologists? Let's dive into that. Cognitive psychologists approach learning from a different angle, placing greater emphasis on mental processes like thinking, memory, and problem solving. They posit that learning involves the transformation of information in our minds, a process that's far more than just a response to stimuli. It's about making sense of the world, about understanding and interpreting the information we're exposed to. In the cognitive lens, learning is an active, constructive, and long-lasting process that involves a deep level of mental activity. We're not just passive recipients of information. We play an active role in learning, drawing on our past experiences and existing knowledge to interpret new information. Now, let's switch gears and talk about connectionism, a theory that's often linked with cognitive psychology. Connectionism focuses on the neural networks in our brain, suggesting that learning occurs when these networks of neurons are activated and strengthened. It's like a web of interconnected nodes, each representing a concept or piece of information. The more we use a particular pathway in this network, the stronger it becomes. Over time, these neural pathways can become automatic, allowing us to retrieve information or perform tasks without conscious thought. Connectionism provides a physical explanation for learning, linking it to the actual changes that occur in our brains. It's a fascinating perspective that combines elements of neuroscience with the principles of cognitive psychology, offering a more comprehensive view of how learning happens. Cognitive learning theories also account for complex learning processes that other theories might struggle to explain. Let's take language acquisition, for instance. Cognitive psychologists argue that children learn language not just through imitation or reinforcement, but by actively constructing grammar rules in their minds. They observe, hypothesize, test, and refine these rules, a process that mirrors scientific inquiry. Then there's problem solving, a skill that's crucial in our daily lives. Cognitive theories suggest that we solve problems by drawing on our mental representations of the world. We mentally simulate different scenarios, evaluate potential solutions, and select the one that seems most likely to succeed. It's a process that involves a high level of mental activity and strategic thinking. From the cognitive perspective, learning is a deeply internal and personal process, shaped by our mental activities and neural connections. It's about making sense of the world around us, building knowledge and skills, and developing our understanding. It's a perspective that highlights the complexity and richness of the learning process, reminding us that learning is far more than just a response to stimuli. And with that, we've unraveled the concepts of connectionism and cognitive orientation to learning. From the cognitive perspective, learning is a deeply internal and personal process, shaped by our mental activities and neural connections. Summing up the learning journey, we've journeyed through different theories and perspectives of learning. We started by probing the nature and definition of learning, understanding it as a process that brings about a permanent change in behavior or knowledge due to experience. We then explored the behaviorist orientation of learning, diving deep into how our behaviors can be shaped by our environment through the principles of reinforcement and punishment. Next, we unraveled the intriguing concepts of connectionism and cognitive orientation to learning. Here, we realized that learning is not just about the visible changes in behavior, but also about the internal cognitive processes, making connections and constructing knowledge in our minds. Understanding these theories is crucial. They provide invaluable insights for educators to design effective learning environments, for psychologists to understand human behavior, and for each one of us as learners navigating our own unique learning journeys. Remember, the journey of learning is not a straight path, but a complex and winding road, shaped by our interactions, mental processes, and the ever-changing world around us. And if you like this video, do not forget to subscribe and follow to the Psychology and Physical Training channel for more videos. Thanks for watching.